Well, hello everyone. It is that Weems guy back for another episode. Sorry for the couple of week hiatus. I was on the road for a week and then had a family obligation over that weekend. And then the next week, just didn't get anything put together. And but Kurt Clark put this episode together tonight, and we're going to talk about a group that he put together to go to the Rogers Shooting School. And Kurt's going to take over right now and tell you about organizing the group and anything else he wants to tell you.
Hi, I'm Kirk Clark. I'm an instructor with Citizens Defense Research and longtime practitioner and student of tactical shooting of all kinds. And actually, I got recruited into this one by Rick and Mirko. I can't remember which one of y'all messaged me, but I had sworn to myself, like, you know what, I'm going to take. I took 2023 off from Rogers, and I'm like, I'm going to take 2024 off also. Whatever, it's fine. I'm going to focus on some different things. And then I get a call from my normal crew of guys that go to Rogers with usually about every other year. And they're like, hey, we're going in May. Do you want to go? And I'm like, uh, you know what? I love going to the boys. I'll go. And then I get a call the next day from, I don't remember, it was either Rick or Mirko. I get a call from one of them. They're like, hey, we're getting together like the super squad for Rogers. We're getting some of the coolest people out there to go do it. Are you in? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll do Rogers twice in 1 year. So that was kind of my play this year. So I went with my normal merry band of degenerates in May and this lovely band of upstanding people this time. And it was a lot of fun, man. And, we had some good success both times, but, different experiences, different people. And, this was really, I kept referring to this group as the Avengers. Like, we're trying to assemble, like, we're building a team, and we had a lot of really talented shooters and just really wonderful people here. And it was a really great experience. I had a fantastic time.
How many trips does this make to Rogers for you?
It makes for me, this is my seventh since 2014, so seven in a decade. And then my brother Dan's actually done eight since 2013. My first Rogers I missed out on, our original group went to in 2013. I missed out on that because I injured myself in ECQC 2 weeks before Rogers, so I couldn't go.
All right. Your brother Dan, who we'll get to in just a second, was telling us a great story about his very first open enrollment class, and what led us into that is that I went to Rogers in 2014, and it was my second ever open enrollment class. So Dan, introduce yourself and tell us what your older brother did to you.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Daniel Clark, and yeah, I think it was a fun story. I grew up shooting, just local range. We were lucky enough to have a local school, so I didn't do open enrollment, but I'd been through a couple classes and done some shooting. But Alex says, or Kirk was telling me like, well, let's go do this class. It's in Central Texas. I think it was like the middle of the summer, burning hot during the day and all that. So we get there and I took a class from some guy, Craig Douglas, South Narc. The class is called ECQC. I don't know really what I'm getting into. So that was my first open enrollment class ever. And by the end of I think the first real day, I looked at him and said, so when you go out to all these shooting schools, is this what you do all the time, man? Because I was beat up the
I,
first time.
I,
Excellent class, but it surprised me for sure.
I am the next to the youngest of all of my generation of cousins and stuff that grew up next to each other. And I am just flashing back to the older cousins convincing me to touch the electric fence right now.
Yeah, it was something like that. But I kept going back and touching it because it was fun. But yeah,
All right,
something
so
just
this
like
is
like
this
that.
this is Roger's trip to number 8 for you.
Yeah. This is the eighth time, so I've been out there quite a bit.
Okay. Well, I guess we should have said in the intro we're talking about the elite Rogers Shooting School in Ellijay, Georgia. All right, Mr. Sansone.
Yeah, so Alex Sansone, I'm a suited shootist on online, and so this was my first trip to Rogers. It was actually a surprise. It was last year's Christmas gift, interestingly enough, because because I've been talking with Kirk a bit about this, and kind of one of my training priorities over the span of the last year or so is, I'm trying to get as much time as I can with the folks that have impending expiration dates. I never got a chance to train with Dave Spalding before he hung it up, or Ken Hackathorn before he hung it up. Unfortunately, there's been a handful of instructors who passed before I got a chance to train with them, and so the kind of the old guard, as it were, whose not going to be teaching that much longer. I'm trying to get as much of that wisdom as I can. And I think it was at TACCon last year, maybe Kirk made the observation. It was like, hey man, you know, you number one, you should do Rogers, and if you're going to do it, probably sooner rather than later. So that's kind of how this whole thing manifested.
All right. Annette.
Hello. Annette Evans. I am on her own as well as Beauty Behind the Blast in my far past. I went to Rogers because I got peer pressured into it, Rick. Um, and it was probably one of the best things I've ever been peer pressured into. I don't shoot as much as I used to, and getting kind of dumped into Rogers was really, really great experience all around, just to see where I'm at, where I can be. I feel like pretty good about my shooting these days, which is nice because I've sort of branched out and become a lot of a multidisciplinarian. So it's been keeping me busy, and getting to go back onto the range and seeing what I could do in an environment like Rogers, which to me is one of sort of the stations of the cross when it comes to shooting. uh, I can't say enough things about how amazing of an experience it was for me. It's probably going to be on that short list of classes I'll go back to over time, even though I'm not training a lot.
All right, Rick.
Hi, Rick Remington. I'm the owner and chief instructor at Foundational Defensive Training up in Northwest Washington State. This was my second trip to Rogers, and I enjoyed it last time, and I enjoyed it again this time. It's very challenging, and that's one of the things I like about it is it makes you work for it.
Matt.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matt Rakestraw. I don't own anything. I'm not really an instructor. I'm just a normal guy. I have an Instagram like everybody else. It's called Gunpowder and Paper. This is my first time at Rogers, and I found it really, really interesting. It was a great exercise in deliberate shooting, which is a lot different than a lot of the like modern day classes that you see. I've been to a couple of different legacy schools or legacy courses, and this was absolutely, um, I found it the most interesting one with some of the best instructors that I've seen. And the test is one of the best, arguably the best portions of the course. And besides obviously the awesome crew, I went to just to double check, and Rick was the one who tapped me. He's like, "Hey, have you ever been to Rogers?" It was like last year. I'm like, I remember reading that a long time ago. I was a book collector like 5 years ago, and remember reading about Rogers. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I had to go back and find it in like combat handguns of the 80s or 90s with, big old giant cool looking gun on the cover, whatever it was. And read about it. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And then I went, and it was an awesome weekend or
right.
week, not weekend.
Okay. Speaking of Rogers, what's that?
It went by quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of Rogers and the Rogers book that you do as you accompany the class, I will say that based on my own research, much of which is done as episodes of this show, there's some key errors in Mr. Rogers' book when he refers to the Weaver stance and the modern technique. Some of the stuff that he purports is not accurate. Now, that does not take away from the material that you actually get in the shooting school and the test and the like and the experience there. But what he puts forth about the Weaver stance and everything is not what Jack Weaver did, and is not what Jeff Cooper taught, and what came out of Gunsight and the modern technique. I will say that when I went to Rogers, there were 4 Gunsight instructors in the class. And there was an interesting back and forth in the Sunday night session in the cabin there, where Mr. Rogers had his comments about the Weaver stance, and the modern technique. And one of those Gunsight instructors was Ken Campbell, who later went on to become the CEO of Gunsight. And he's like, Bill, that's not accurate. And it's kind of like watching a tennis match go back and forth a little bit. And based on what I have learned from first generation people that were part of the whole gun sight thing and the modern technique, Bill's assertions are wrong. They just are. But, there's still lots of good things that come out of it. For those who aren't familiar with the course, it is a set of pneumatic plates that appear and disappear depending on which particular version string on the test that you're shooting. They're at different distances. If you get on YouTube and just search for Rogers Shooting School, you can find video clips of the various stages. And Kirk's holding up a picture of it right now for the camera for those doing the video version. Todd Lewis Green of Pistol Forum and pistoltraining.com put together an excellent set of videos on the actual test. So if you want to see what we're talking about tonight, take a look there. Also, we do need to pay homage to Bill Rogers, the inventor. If you use a Safariland duty holster, Bill Rogers probably invented it. Pretty
We may
If you
talk
use
about
a
this.
Kydex holster, he came up with that idea.
Yeah, he came up with the whole Kydex thing. To put it into perspective of how much of an inventor this guy was, as a teenager, he was wanting to shoot clay pigeons, and he lived near a place where they shot them over a pond, and he invented his own device to get the shot out of the pond so that he could reload it into his shotgun shells. And then he went out and picked up all the broken clay pigeons and smelted them down and made his own clay pigeons. So he wouldn't have to buy those. And that was as a teenager. He later became an FBI agent and was actually given a leave of absence from the FBI to experiment with his holster company and some other concepts. And the FBI decided to do that. They felt like the advances that he would make would be worth it. And he never came back to being an FBI agent. So pretty well-rounded dude.
Fencing champion, scuba diver, former, I think, president of IPSC. Like, he's been a busy guy.
Oh yeah.
And I think we found this out at dinner afterwards on Friday night with Claude Warner. Apparently, we also have him to thank for Steel Challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently he was one of the godfathers of Steel Challenge, according to Claude. So,
his range system is very unique. Claude Warner, who was just mentioned at one time, was the chief instructor there. Another former chief instructor was a man by the name of Ronnie Dodd, who passed away in an ATV accident a couple of years ago. Ronnie had his own Rogers set up at his range where he ran the course. I think there's one somewhere in Texas. There was one at one time. I don't know who runs that. The Georgia Public Safety Training Center has one, but it's not the same layout, but it has the Rogers blessing. The Cherokee County, Georgia Sheriff's Office has one. I'm not sure about their layout. I've not been to it, but I know they have a official Rogers range there. There's not many places you can go do it.
No, there's Rogers ranges out there and a lot of in some institutional places. But to my knowledge, Ronnie Dodd's place and then the place in Texas are the only two that are trying to do the test to, Bill's timing. And that's part of, I guess, part of the fun thing about doing the test at Bill's place is just they've been running it the same way for almost 40 years, and so you're doing the same thing,
Although Claude complains it's a little easier now than it used to be because you can hear one of the pneumatics.
Oh no.
I don't know. It seemed pretty hard to me anyway, so
It was very you remember that kind of B-list Western movie, The Quick and the Dead, with Russell Crowe and Sharon Stone, and that whole clock tower bit, there's the click before the strike. It's yeah, very reminiscent of that.
Yeah. If this episode does inspire you to go to Rogers, make sure you follow the written directions for how to get to the range, do not follow your GPS.
Don't do that.
Because if you are driving a four-wheel drive Chevy long bed 2500 and you use your GPS, you may find yourself about to cross a flooded mountain stream and you have to do a 37-point turnaround on a dirt road in your 2500 HD because the water on this is so tight that I wouldn't even go through it with a big four-wheel drive like that and backtracked. So make sure you
Allegedly.
follow the written directions.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm spoiled because my usual crew, I've got a guy that's like a 17th century like master of sail ship's captain, like knowledge of where he's going. And so he usually does all the driving in town. But with this crew, I was like, oh no, how do I get anywhere? This is awful. Like, because the GPS is just always wrong anywhere adjacent to LJ, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt really bad because it was me, Kirk, and Dan were sharing the Airbnb, and so Dan and I, neither of whom are morning people, and both of us have weapons grade ADHD. So Kirk was the organizer, like he was having to herd squirrels for the first 3 hours of every morning.
It was great.
I feel like we were helping you perform better because we were like, it was like giving you like extra weights while you're training. So that way, whenever you got to the range, you know.
All right,
Yeah,
for those of you that have been, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? For those of you that have been to Rogers, what makes you keep going back? And for those of you this was your first time, what were you hoping to get out of it? We'll get to
but let's go in order of most attendances. So it'd be Daniel, then me, then Rick, and then the three new folks.
Okay.
Well, so the first time I went, it was, it was a bunch of the guys are getting together. It'll be a fun group trip. It'll be a difficult test. You can kind of see where you're at. And, me being interested in, defensive shooting and, also just performance shooting on some level too. So it seemed like just a good all around time. But then, after the first time, what makes it worth it to come back? It's just, there's nothing else quite like it that I've ever done in the shooting world. It's a truly unique thing and it's fun. And especially if you go out with like a group of people that are all there, it's a really unique experience because it's just no matter if you can have like the best shooter there or somebody that's like still learning, you can all go on that trip and still get something amazing out of it. So I feel like it's pretty unique for a class in that way as well. So those are some of the things that really stick out to me is just one, you can go with anybody and have a good time and everyone can learn something, whether you're like one of the top shooters in the world or you're, just kind of learning. So that's just a lot of fun for me, I think.
Kurt.
So the first time I went to Rogers, I very intentionally studied nothing about it. I wanted to go in completely blind. Like I did not look at the tests. I didn't do anything. I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. And back then I didn't really know like match prep, like how to make sure all your stuff was ironed out. I just kind of showed up and then I'd figure it out when I got there. And so I got there and the first time Bill runs the test, I was like, oh no, like this is a lot. Like this is gonna be hard. And my first shot of the test was my lowest score was a 105, and then I finished that week with a 121 and a red pin. And after that, I was kind of like, all right, well, what would it look like if I, prepped a little bit, went in, kind of had a training regimen, kind of like, did what I could. And then over the years, I've just refined my prep more and more. It took me several trips to finally get a 125, but I was able to, in 21, I got three 125s, and then from there, I was like, okay, like I need to, how can I improve? How can I keep going? And I think I want to touch on something Daniel said is, what I love about Rogers is when the challenge is unique. There's nothing quite like it. I've done a lot of the pins and patches and stuff, the Pokemon and the training community. I love that stuff. And, but Rogers is different because it's just such a marathon. Like the test is really tough on your concentration. It's just because it takes a long time to administer all 9 stages. And what I love about Rogers is you can go with a mixed skill group of individuals. You don't need like a bunch of like guys shooting for 125. You don't need a bunch of guys shooting for basic. You need like any skill group has something they're hunting for, whether that's, basic, intermediate, advanced, or 125. You know what I mean? Like whatever skill level you're at, there's something here for you to work on that is going to be extremely challenging. And I can't think of anything else quite like that in the training space. Plus, I also like at Rogers, the instructors actually shoot a lot of demos. They all know how to shoot. And, with as many instructors as you have, you get a good amount of feedback. And I think it's a good facility and a good program. And, I've trained in a lot of places, but I just keep coming back to Rogers because one, I don't think there's anywhere quite like it.
All right, for the audience, if you're unaware, a 125 is a perfect score on the test. It is exceedingly rare for people to get a 125. The school's been in existence for over 40 years. I went in 2014 and I saw perfect scores number 3 and 4 happen. That's how it works. Kirk, were you number 5 or number 6?
I think I was right after Manny and Gabe. I think I was next. I was number 6. And then now it's either 10 or 11. We couldn't figure out the count because they haven't had, now they have a scoreboard. They have a little like plaque, but they hadn't added everyone. But yeah, I think there's been a total of 14,
David,
18 or 19 perfect runs now at this point.
Yeah, I know David Knight was either, if you were 5, he was 6. If you were
He
6,
was
he was
before
5.
me. It was David
Yeah.
Knight, then me. Yeah.
David Knight, excellent shooter. I've trained with Dave a good bit. It was funny, like of the first 7 people to do it, the only person who wasn't in my phone was Rob Latham.
Yeah. Well, okay. So how hard a 125 is? This is going to sound flippant, but it's not. Rob Latham did not 125 on his first attempt.
Right.
And it's Rob Latham. You know what I mean? Now he did on his second attempt, and apparently like he shot the 125 day 2 and was like, all right, I'm out. And he just like took off. But if it can throw a loop at Rob Latham, it's hard,
Yeah. Rick?
This was my second time to Rogers, but I had been to Ronnie Dodd's system the year before, and that whetted my appetite for Rogers. It was 3 days at Ronnie Dodd's and then the Rogers 5-day program, and then again this year. You need to learn to at least know how to safely draw and fire a handgun before you go to Rogers. Because it's not a place to take a brand new person unless you put them through their Rogers basic class. But for the advanced class that we were in, you kind of need to know which end the bullet comes out of. But it is such as Kirk said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, because there are 9 stages and there are 3 relays. So the first guy is shooting and then he goes and reloads his magazine while the second person shoots. And then when the third person's up, the first guy is scoring the second person, the third person, and so on. And one of the challenges to Rogers, if you want to do well there, you have to be able to maintain your focus. You can't get distracted. You have to be able to maintain your focus on what you're doing because you can't mess up. You can't mess up or you're going to get way behind and things are going to fall apart on you. So especially for an advanced shooter, it's a wonderful place just to go benchmark yourself and see how you're doing.
All right. I've got a comment along those lines, but I'm going to save it till another round because I want to get everybody's take on it. But I don't want to shortcut what other people are saying here. All right. So Alex, you're the first newbie up. What were you expecting to get out of it?
I was expecting confirmation. It was really just one of those, all right, let's see what I got. Because being surrounded by a crop of shooters like the rest of this panel and a lot of the other folks that are our mutual friends, I'm generally the reason that any of those groups are getting graded on a curve. So it was a good kind of just benchmark. And I mean, aside from that, I didn't go in with a lot of expectation. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about because even watching Bill Rogers shoot each stage of the test on YouTube, when you watch it, and it's like when you watch it and when you listen to it, it doesn't sound frenzied. It doesn't sound hectic. It doesn't sound chaotic. It doesn't sound rushed. And that sets such an insanely false expectation the first time that first target goes up on test one, because your brain just goes, oh my God. So yeah, that's why I went.
If
Yeah,
I
I recently took a high-speed driving class, and as you watch the other cars go around the track, look, they're going that fast. When you're in the car and it's going around the track, it's you're just screaming for dear life. Yes, you're going some of the
Mhm.
turns and everything. Rick, what were you going
And
to
I
say?
was wrong.
Yeah,
I was going to modify what Alex said there. It's not when the first target pops up, it's when it disappears before you get on
Yeah,
it.
okay, yes. That is a more accurate assessment.
Because when you watch on YouTube, you see Bill hit them all, and you're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. But when
yeah.
you see it in front of you, it's like, oh no, where'd that go? What's happening? It's a very different
Yeah.
experience. You don't have
Yes.
Bill in front of you knocking them down for you. So,
Well, and quite frankly, that was one of the things that kind of built a little bit of false confidence for me was in that series of videos. Like Bill doesn't clean it, so it's like the guy who has it at his disposal 24/7 is not nailing it perfectly. So that immediately gives you a little bit of permission to screw it up. But yeah, it's its own
It's
animal.
it's funny that you use the word confirmation because in my trip there was a guy who was fairly new in his shooting journey, but he had some exposure to to some good information, and he thought he was doing pretty good, and then he got on Roger, and it completely demoralized him. Now he bounced back. He did pass the class, but he didn't do nearly to the level that he thought he would. Now, thankfully, he responded by going and doing a lot of work after that. But he went in expecting to come out of well, I'm good, and he came out going, ooh, I got work to do.
I don't think
Yeah,
anyone walks out of Rogers feeling like I'm amazing. Like it's humbling for everybody.
it is.
All right,
It's ballistic self-flagellation.
uh, all right, Annette, what'd you expect to get?
I also went a little bit for confirmation. Like I said earlier, I haven't been shooting a whole lot. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so how bad is it? I have never in my life been so happy to be leading up the bottom third of a class. And I made basic on day one, which I'm told is actually not that common. I'm like, yeah, I made basic. You know, the difficulty is hard to overstate, but that doesn't mean that there's not wins at the lower levels.
Mm-hmm.
We watch people shoot practical, which is a little bit lower than basic, and they improved all week. And what was really beautiful about Rogers is how happy people were for each other. We
Mm-hmm.
were cheering for the 125s the same way we were cheering for the people who finally broke 50.
Mhm.
And that is really, really cool about the experience. There's permission to be really good, and there's permission to be like, I just showed up and I'm getting a little better and I can handle a gun okay. I think anybody who could survive a week at Rogers is probably a better shooter than most of the population. Being part of that, it's going to definitely be one of those classes that I'm going to make the time to go back to.
Yeah, and there's no hiding.
No,
Uh,
no.
No,
Not at all.
no.
yeah,
No.
the first day you shoot in alphabetical order, and
Mhm.
then each day you shoot in order of who got the best score the day before,
Yep.
and then that rolls on through. And so your
Mhm.
your spot may change throughout the week, and there's no hiding it. If you are sixth booth last relay, you're bringing up the rear,
Mhm.
and everybody else knows it too. If you're on the first relay, you're kind of, oh, I'm doing all right. This is going pretty good. It's pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, again, there's no hiding.
Th-
Matt.
They're they're tough on you. And not in a mean way or anything, but they are tough
Mhm.
on you. And I actually really liked that we were sorted by how we were doing all week. And in our case, we did not get sorted alphabetical on day one because so many repeat offenders were there.
Okay.
So it gave me, I shot third relay, and it gave me the opportunity to really see, how the good
Mhm.
guys are doing it, how the really good guys were doing it, how the good guys were doing it, and then the rest of us. So we had the unusual experience. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out. We had the entire first relay a couple of times in this group. That
Mhm.
was super, super cool. Um, but we had the unusual experience of most of the class making advanced
Yeah.
or intermediate,
Mhm.
which I'm told is rare.
Yeah.
I mean, even all the lawyers who showed up made intermediate or advanced.
My class, we had, I think, 8 advanced. I know the entire top, everybody in the first relay, but going into the last day had already made advanced. I'm pretty sure there were some in the second relay on the last day that made advanced. Matt, go to you.
Yeah. So yeah, the entire week is structured around the test. I really like testing myself. I personally have various uh, shooting Pokemon you can go and collect, and which may or may not be indications of skill if you so choose to believe that. And I really find it interesting to go to different instructors' courses and see either what they believe is really important for defensive or law enforcement or military applications based off their experience, whether real or make believe, to see, or even more importantly, to see what they believe is important for skill development, and choosing to earn that surplus of skill for whatever the highest Pokemon is usually an indication of the pre-work that the shooter has done before. Um, Interesting about this test, it's almost like a major match where it's conducted over multiple days, and you kind of know the course of fire before. The course of fire is on YouTube, and I think Alex Sansone posted the really handy dandy dry fire thing, which you can do at home. And honestly, you should, because it's an excellent dry fire test, whether or not you're going for points. The test is, I don't know of another test which is almost effectively half done with strong, either strong hand only or control or support hand only. It's a really neat test, and I don't know another one that really involves moving targets. They just go up and go down. If you kind of count the Bianchi Cup, but that's not, that is a test, but it's more for competition. Uh, One thing that I really appreciate is that, like, at a certain point in your shooting career, you become the best instructor for yourself. Until you get to that point, other instructors can help you get there, but then you got to refine your own technique for yourself, and then understand your shooting context. And I think this course had an interesting amount of people from a variety of backgrounds, and the margins at the top were really razor thin, where if you had a bad day or even dropped a point, you're literally moving from up or down. And it's kind of cool to see that, uh, like what I think we discussed this before, that Rick said that the tide is rising. And I really don't think we're anywhere near the ceiling of our skill development. Um, I, I I would really like to see Rogers develop more for like vision, which I think is the next frontier of shooting. Um, and heck, maybe even just shoot the entire thing support hand only. There's a lot of really neat stuff about the test that I really appreciate, and I will be back to test myself and maybe do something crazy like shoot it with a 10006 or 1911, as John Moses Browning intended.
You could shoot it with iron sights.
Oh! Why would you do that?
The
That's
the
what I'm going to attempt next year. So we'll see.
Yeah.
the pauses are good around a 1911 capacity.
I had a long conversation with Claude about that about a year or two ago. Actually, not with Claude, with Bill Rogers, and I was kind of just doing an interview with him about the test, and like, because there's like the official rules, which are all on that sheet you get, right? But there's also kind of like, I asked him like, well, what's okay? Yeah, I get the law of the test, but like, what's the spirit of the test? What did you design this around? And according to Bill, he designed it around concealed carry or duty gear. He doesn't care which. He thinks they're about equivalently more hard than like a USPSA rig or something. And with a 1911 with 10-round mags, that's what he designed the test for. Like if you can, it was designed with that. So it's possible with that, but I'll tell you, test 9 is going to be real hard when you have to take that first reload. Like that is very sporty, but it's possible. And I just love it that he came up with something, I don't know, so almost mischievously evil. Like this test is incredibly hard and I love it.
All right, we have been joined by Mirko, and Mirko, you're going to have to pronounce your last name. I've heard you say it, but I'm going to let you do it here.
It's Mugly.
Okay. I understand that you have joined the 125 Club.
I did, yeah. I snuck it in Thursday morning of our week there. Yeah, that was cool. That was serendipitous, I guess. I don't know what the right word for that is.
Well, congratulations on that. Everyone else has already given their intro and explained how they chose to go to Rogers and everything. So kind of tell everybody who you are, what got you into this group that's going, and have you been to Rogers before? And what did you expect to get out of it?
Okay, that's a lot. Mirko Mugly, I'm a nerd with a gun, and I guess I've gotten reasonably good at it through just out of sheer spite at this point. I went to Rogers because Rick invited me. I'd heard a lot about it. I'd seen a lot about it from folks like Kirk and others. And I finally got it together and went. I did a fair bit of prep for it. So like my goal with this was to see if I could clean it if I prepped enough for it. If I could clean it on my first time without having shot it before, right? Like I hadn't done this one. I forget where the other place is that runs the same course. So that was kind of my test to me. Like, do I have what it takes to do the prep work and show up and do it? And I did, which was cool. That was validating. And I forgot the rest of your questions. I'm sorry.
What were you expecting to get out of it? Or hoping to get out of it?
I was expecting to see where I stand on my journey, right? I expected to find out what shortcomings I have, what I'm good at, and I guess that's kind of it. But I expected to learn something new, and I did that too. So that was cool.
All right, Alex has got his hand up.
Yeah, well, just because, quite frankly, Mirko, Rick, and Matt are all doing themselves an egregious disservice, and I think it's worth calling out the fact that all three of these psychos did this with a double action gun.
Well, and us and Daniel are all doing it from concealment too. You know what I mean? And also, everyone here shot it from concealment at some point. So you know what I mean? Like it's an order of magnitude harder when you do it from concealment or duty. It's just and Mirko, you did it with a SIG 229 with a compact. You mad lad! I love that for you.
Yeah,
All right,
so yeah, don't let it was cool, I guess. Don't let that fool you. Like he is like hardcore downplaying the level of what he did out there.
All right, you ready for this, Sansone?
Let's hear it.
My first run on the GIPS, Georgia Public Safety Training Center's Rogers Range, a Smith & Wesson 3rd generation auto from a level 3 Safari Land 070 holster.
Who hurt you? Don't give Kirk any ideas.
Yeah. Gypstick is what we call it, Georgia Public Safety Training Center. Gypstick has a series of courses, semi-auto 1, semi-auto 2, semi-auto 3. They've meant different things over the years. Semi-auto 1 was originally a transition course from people switching from revolvers to automatics. Semi-auto 2 was like the first level of, okay, here's how you really use a semi-auto. It's a 4-day class, and when I went through it, one of those 4 days you spent on the Rogers range. So that was my very first exposure to the Rogers system.
And you didn't have Bruce Gray or Ernest Langdon sweetening up that double action trigger for you either.
Oh no! When I say a 40 caliber, third generation with 11 round magazines.
My God.
I kind of want to
Yeah.
bring my 3913 in the Enigma now with leather just to break people's minds. It doesn't even matter
Semi-auto,
what I shoot and score if I do that.
Semi-auto 3 is 4 days on the Rogers range.
Oof.
It's a 100 plate course. It has had different scoring systems over the years. When they're talking about the test at Rogers, they're saying basic, intermediate, and advanced are the 3 different levels of scoring, and that's based on your total plate count out of 125 possible plates. At Gypstick, the first 2 times I went through semi-auto 3, um, you had to shoot basic, which was based on freestyle or two-handed shooting. You had to get 80% of the basic plates. To get at intermediate, you had to get 80% of the basic plates plus 80% of the strong hand only plates. And to get advanced, you had to go 80, 80, 80, with the last 80% being on support hand only. Now it has gone to a total plate count
And
system.
it's interesting that it correlated that way because Kirk, I think you were telling me that when you were talking with William April about it, how he broke down the Rogers scoring kind of fell into that same categorization, didn't it?
Well, like April's one of the guys that he would go like basically almost every year. So William April went there all the time, shot advance from concealment many, many times. You know, we all know him for his like psychological work, but the dude could shoot and fight. You know, he was much more multifaceted, I think, than a lot of people realize. And you know, I was picking his brain on it. I took establishing a dominance paradigm with him, Tom, and Craig. You know, one of the years that I was offered. And I was talking to him about Rogers, and his kind of take was, you know, you can do good at Rogers. You know, you'll get basic if you can shoot well two-handed, and you'll get intermediate if you can shoot well one-handed. But to get advanced, you got to be able to shoot weekend only. Like that, there's too many points on the table for you to just dump weekend only shooting and shoot advanced. So you can almost like sort people into like, all right, you know, if you're struggling to get in advance, I guarantee you, if you look at the math on your scores over the week, you're probably dumping a lot on the weekend only shoot. And honestly, I think the weekend only portion in test 6 are why a lot more people don't have, you know, 125s advance, whatever, is just because that's just hard, man. And there's skills nobody wants to work. They're just challenging, embarrassing. No one says like, oh, I did a couple months of weekend only work and I felt really great about my shooting afterwards. Like nobody feels that way. It's
So,
miserable.
so Kirk, let's talk about skills. So, if you're to recommend people work on weekend only shooting, what would you recommend? Trick and control, grip, indexed. I mean, the reloads I feel like are relatively the easiest part of the weekend shooting. You just get the mag out, put it back in. If you screw up, you got a door to rack off your optic or iron sights. If you're
That
on
was
that.
beautiful, by the way. That was
Oh,
beautiful.
that was third time. I guess what Rick is talking about is I didn't oil my Beretta because stupid me, I'll shoot my PX4 and something happened to it. I had to switch my 92 and had to reshoot. And Francis was watching me, an instructor, and I think Bill was watching me too. I don't. He was out there and had a malfunction. So I just shoved it in, just racking my SRO off the door. I was like, oh God, Aaron Cowan, please help me. and it got up, and thank God everything went. It was fine, but it was just SRO is still working fine. Yeah, but
Um,
so Clark,
yeah, like examining the tests and the skills you need to, you know, excel at the test, in my opinion. Um, Weekend only is one, I'd say like actually the hardest part at Rogers are the strong hand only, honestly, because I think the bogey he gives you for how he adjusts how quickly the plates come down strong hand only is very optimistic. Whereas the weekend only, I feel like there's time to do everything. The right hand only, like man, you gotta do some serious shooting. The left hand only is more about not screwing up. The right hand only, you have to like rise to the occasion, especially on test 6.
so
Um,
it sounds
but
like you're
on the
saying supporting hand only is like about more consistency, and support hand only is.
consistency. And so just so to me, so what support only is useful for in like a meta sense beyond even like Rogers is to me, your ability to support only is like it shows me your understanding and mastery of the fundamentals because you don't have all that flight time you have two-handed, right? And then right hand only still okay, I don't have support hand, so I've got more recoil, a little bit less stability, but it's still mostly there, right? It's not that far off. Weekend only, you have so much less familiarity and you have so much less dexterity in your weekend shooting finger operating independently because you have like a million reps of like just clamping with your weak hand, right? And so now you're having to like be dexterous with a finger you're not used to being dexterous with. And to me, how you shoot weekend only is indicative of like how, this is an old sci-fi term, but like how you like grok shooting,
Yeah.
like how do you truly understand shooting, not intellectually, but like having the ability to like do it with your person. Your weekend shooting is going to like determine a lot of that because like you don't have all those thousands or hundreds of thousands of hours of flight time backing you up. You just have, I know how to do this thing, and you can apply it, right?
Okay.
Or you'll struggle to apply it. And that's why weekend's useful. I think in a meta sense, like I do more weekend shooting than most people, but it's not just a Rogers thing. One, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, so I've been right arm in a sling enough in my life that I want to know how to shoot weekend only. But I also think it serves a purpose for like you're not getting all those advantages you have with your strong hand. You have to just intellectually understand what you're doing. And I think that has merit regardless of what type of shooting you're interested in.
Okay. And I don't want to take everybody's time, but I find this type of discussion fascinating. First of all, another cool guy like Stranger in a Strange Land, the the most flowery of Highlands novels, right? But so it sounds like that you're saying so, and you might be like me, where if for my two-handed shooting, I just rely on my vision because if my grip is good, my trigger press is good, then I can hit you what I'm shooting at, unless it gets to the point where I'm shooting at a distance where I have to compensate for bullet drop or it's really close. Or if it's a really high risk target, then I just have to put it all into my vision and or my trigger finger for control. You're saying that for support hand only, specifically for this test, because you have the time, you can all do the exact same thing where you have to rely on a higher level cue, but you have to practice it a whole lot to get that cue. So, but for your strong hand only, because you do not have the time, do you have to drive with a specific cue? The reason I've been asking is I've been talking to different people, some shooters who drive the gun a lot. Now, I don't mean like with their hands. I mean they are constantly thinking about a specific cue over and over and over again, and or they are changing it. Are you mentally what are you putting all your mental focus in between your two-handed shooting, your single hand shooting, right and or left? And if I'm psychotic and I'm like the weird guy on the podcast, let me know. But this is the type of stuff that I love.
I didn't become like the weird Rogers guy by accident. I thought about
Yeah.
this test a lot, right?
Okay.
And the first few times I kind of went in without a specific training regimen, but I talked to Gabe White about it, and I was like, "Well, man, how'd you prep for Rogers?" And he was like, "Oh, I had a mock-up of no pneumatics, but I had like a plate set up like it. I had a dry fire set up like it. I did like hours and hours and hours of prepping for the test, and I studied the test. I'm like, oh, I've just been showing up. Like I gotta like prep for this thing. You know what I mean? And once I started doing that, that's when I started, getting 125s. And so for me, I really think the difference between pulling in the mid to 120s and pulling 125s, as much as anything, is just knowing what's going to happen. Now, can people get a 125 without that? Yes. I mean, Rob Latham did it, but as far as I'm aware, maybe Manny Bragg. I think those would be the only guys that didn't study it a bunch before they went. So you'll have a harder time if you don't kind of know. I'm not saying memorize every plate. I don't have every plate memorized, but like knowing, hey, this test is this kind of thing. This kind of thing is going to happen. And so for me, when I'm doing my two-handed shooting, I'm much less worried about like, okay, I know exactly what's about to happen because it's much more. I have so much flight time two-handed that I just kind of let my instinct, my shooting, my practice isn't like practicing medicine. I let my practice take over at that point. On the one-handed shooting in either direction, I have to be more focused because Rogers will expose your weaknesses as a shooter. And my weakness and my strength as a shooter is I have pretty good intuition and I will take riskier shots than some people will, which is
Can you
why
define intuition real quick?
as in like I go, yeah, I think that's good enough. I think that's enough sight
Is that
versus
just
I
shot
know
calling?
that's enough.
Is that just shot
Kind
calling?
that's shot
Because is it
calling.
shot calling vision and feel? You're just combining that into intuition, or you just like, bang, I got it, and by Baby Yoda it down.
So not to be a contrarian, but I think shot
Right.
calling is a vitally important skill. But I also
Okay.
think I've never met anyone that preaches a lot of shot calling who's right 100% of the time either, right?
Right.
So it's a super valuable skill, but it's also never going to be 100% there in my experience. Yes, you should develop it, but also at a certain level, you're saying, no, I'm putting enough sight that there's no way I can possibly miss this, or you're putting enough sight and grip and triggering that you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's enough. And then you're going to find out once it fires, right? And so my thing is, I trust my shooting, I trust my practice, I trust my intuition, but sometimes that bites me in the butt, right? Sometimes I'm wrong, and I'll or catch a mic. And what I find about Rogers is the fact that the targets are disappearing brings out the worst in me as a shooter. It brings out all my worst habits because I'm just like roll, put it all on black, put it all on black, like constantly. And so that's my struggle at Rogers is it brings out that element of how I visually process stuff because I'm just afraid, like, man, if I take that extra tenth of a second, it might not be there. So I tend to take a lot of risks at Rogers. Where if I go to like, you see me shoot, let's say the finals attack on or something, I shoot much more conservatively than I do at Rogers because I know, like, man, I got to hit that little skinny tiny like credit card behind a T-shirt. You know what I mean? And so I'll really put the sight on it. Whereas Rogers, just that fact that it's going away is it brings out the worst in me. So Roger's kind of great because it's the kind of shooting I do not, it's not set up for me to succeed. And that's kind of what I love about it is like it brings out like, I'm like, I thought I was past all this, like every time I'm there and I'm not,
Yeah.
right? I still make dumb mistakes. But I do think it's about with the one-handed stuff, it's really about you have to accept a few things. You have to accept that the site will be less stable. It just will be. There's no way around that. It's not going to hold the same way. I mean, and we're not Terminators, right? It's never truly just the dot or the irons are just there. They're always moving, right? But they're going to move more, especially weak hand, right? Your transitions are going to take a little bit longer. They're not going to be at the speed you're quite used to them being at. And then your recoil, your recovery is going to be longer too, right? It's just it will take you longer to get back on target one-handed than it does two-handed. So you have all these elements that are just different than what you spend 90% of your time doing. And so to me, the way I process that information is it's more intellectual when I'm shooting strong hand or weak hand. I'm thinking about it more. Whereas when I'm shooting two-handed, I'm kind of just reacting most of the time. I'm just like, I know how to shoot. Let's go, And I think that's mostly due to the flight time element of it.
Okay, and I
One of
promise I'll
the
get the talk.
things,
Oh, go ahead, Annette. You can have the talk to speak.
one of the things that really struck me, I got to watch both Kirk and Daniel shoot quite a bit during the week, and Daniel's a little bit more measured. Kirk is a little bit more like Ricky Bobby. And then I started shooting. But there is enough time. Like as we've been talking about how fast the plates disappear, but there is enough time to take a good shot at every plate. The problem is there is not enough time to hesitate or do anything wrong while you do it. So
Or
as
to
long as you're
miss.
perfect, you have
Yeah.
enough time.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And there's plenty of time as long as nothing goes wrong at all. And then there's no time at all, which that's what gets me in my little loop of like, do it now, go. Oh no,
And
Right.
that was interesting, kind of just being in the third relay and watching, two strings of highly accomplished shooters ahead of us. Um, see, like it's interesting. You can see kind of when somebody falls out mentally, where they're halfway through a given string, and that one error just completely trashes the rest of their game plan, versus the shooter who's like, well, that didn't go right, screw it, and just being able to keep it together to that level um, is that was one of the realizations that I took away is like even when literally everything falls apart, I miraculously don't, because thankfully this wasn't on the test itself. It was on one of the warm-ups, but it was the left hand blast. And so for the listeners, it's a high round count left hand only that involves two reloads that you're doing one-handed. And so after that second reload, and whenever you do a reload, you have to step offline out of the doorway so that you're no longer, in air quotes, in the line of fire. And you need to have your gun back up and ready to go before you step back into the doorway. So I step back into the doorway, I'm presenting the gun out, and as I'm in the process of the trigger press, I see the magazine fall out of my pistol. And because this was one of the tests, my brilliant self didn't have anything other than the 2 magazines in my magazine pouches. And so this was one of the few moments that I've actually experienced time dilation, because in the span of this like 20-second window, I was able to have this line of thought of it's left hand only. So if I switch it to my right hand, anything that I do isn't going to count anyway. All my ammunition's down there, so screw it. I'm trying to balance my pistol on the slide and optic, grab one of the magazines that's on the ground with my left hand only, get it jammed in, get the gun back up and running. And it was a complete goat rodeo. But weirdly enough, I didn't freak out with that nearly as much as just like the test on day one was like, oh my God, I don't know what is going on. So it will show you some really interesting things about yourself.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. And then Daniel said, we were making the joke about ECQC. I think we can draw a parallel here. Oh, I'm going to ask if you see the same parallel that I see. I've heard people talk about ECQC and saying that the biggest thing they got out of that was learning not to panic when they were in a ground fight. And I think maybe perhaps the big thing that you get out of Rogers is that you don't panic. Yeah, maybe you can learn not to panic in the face of some of the challenges you're going to see because of the way that you're facing the time challenges and the time
Yeah.
crunches and everything.
I would absolutely agree with that 100%, because that's, I mean, because my first time at Rogers, I mean, I wasn't shooting anywhere near as seriously, and I've kind of ebbed and flowed how much I'm shooting throughout the years. And so the first time I went, I think I got like 70 maybe was my high score. So that was like my level of dedication shooting what I was doing. This week I hit 124 for the first time, which was equally as like fun and irritating as, And yes, yeah. And but anyway, but something you were saying though is like you have enough time if you're not distracted or thinking about anything else. And that's something, this is some advice that Kirk had given me before. He's like, well, man, if you're thinking about, oh, well, my daddy hates me, or like I didn't make lunch like I should have, like in the middle of the test, you're not going to have time to do what you need to do to be successful. So that same concept of if I'm worrying about all these other things or putting my attention where it's not useful for me in the middle of, an evolution in ECQC, it's the same type of thing at Rogers. If I'm putting all this unnecessary stuff in there, I'm not going to be able to perform and excel at it. So I think that's a really important point.
Anybody
I
else
I
have any?
chuckled. Yeah. Well, I chuckled because when I took ECQC, that was one of the few moments of sheer unbridled primal panic that I've ever experienced in my life. Like my brain actually thought I was going to die. Um, so I didn't learn that from ECQC, but it was definitely a takeaway here. Insofar as like on Friday, which was my high score. I managed my high score of the week, a paltry 97. But I think it was probably test 6 or test 7. I was literally telling my brain to shut up because it was like, dude, you're actually doing all right. Dude, stop. You're going to screw it up. Like, I'm having this internal monologue of, you know, great kid, don't get cocky.
Bro,
So
for me, test 6 is always like how long I'm going to do any given week at Rogers at this point for me is how I'm doing at test 6 that week. And for those who haven't seen it, test 6 is it's one of the only tests that starts with like an audible start. You're supposed to listen for the whoosh of a pump, and then you'll see a target come up at about 15 yards, 2 other targets at 15 yards, a target at about 10, and a target at about 7 or 8. And you have 5 rounds in the gun for those 5 shots. You do a one-handed reload. You come back out. You shoot those same 5 targets in reverse order, but now you have a full mag, so you have makeup shots. And for me, it's not a good thing, but like, it's like being a boxer that has a good chin. Like I'm really good at makeup shots. And so that's a challenge for me to test six. And my personal best, I've done three 125s at Rogers in a week now, 3 times. So on Friday I was trying to beat my record and go for four 125s and in a week. And so I get to test six, and that first plate pops up, and that first plate is always my boogie plate. That's the plate I have got a very complex relationship with.
It
And it
has a
pops
force
up.
field around it. It has a force field. Plate 5 has a force field
It
around
really
it.
does. It really
It's
does.
rough. If you're not, spoiler alert for everyone, if you're not trying to do 125, skip it and ambush four, but whatever. So five's popping up, and I go bing, and I just go, hell yeah, brother. And I transition to 3 to 4, and I just completely mic it. And I'm like, oh, what was that? And I finish it, and I clean the rest of test six, and I drop one for that test for the full test. I do a 124 on Friday. I'm just like, oh well, not this time. But like exactly what you're talking about, Alex. I was just like, yay, I did it. And that yay, I did it cost me the 125. Like that's
At
simple.
least I
That's
had the
all it
presence of
takes.
mind to do it off the line. Like it was
Yeah.
between tests, and I was just trying to kind of suppress my inner cheerleader.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for Mirko and you too, Sanso. Sanso, you started from the meme score of 69, which we all know you just show like I'm gonna get 69 first. You went and you got it right, and then you did well for the rest of the week, and eventually got your highest score of 97. And Mirko shot a 125 for the first time. How did y'all maintain your emotions when you knew that there was an approachable goal that is easily within your reach? Did you change your shooting ability? Did you just have to like suppress it? Did you have to go smoke 47 cigarettes? How did you manage that? Because you only shoot the test a certain amount of times a week, and there is a slight inoculation, effect where it's like you will, unless something goes bad. I could be wrong about this hypothesis, but you should get better if you shoot the test again and again and again. How did y'all maintain your emotions in order to get the higher scores and or for Mirko the perfect score that you got?
Marco, you go first.
I'm gonna get real, I don't know, therapy with you on this. I've worked for a long time now to separate what I consider my worth from my shooting, and having that separation lets me shoot without worrying about the outcome. And that, like, one of my big staples for if I'm shooting something like Dot Assessment Madness is how much of it do I remember? Because if I remember it, something went sideways, right? Like it's what Kirk talked about. I have so much flight time shooting that a lot of it is just autopilot. And on autopilot, I shoot reasonably well. So my biggest thing is just not interrupting that. Like it's not introducing worry about the outcome. It's not introducing criticism. It's even not introducing, hey, that went well, right? It's just trying to shut my brain up and let the process run.
Being completely present in the moment of
Yeah.
being present and observational only.
Yeah. John Johnson talks about it as like seeing yourself in third person. And I try that as much as I can.
That's very like the inner game of tennis from Timothy Galloway. Can I ask you? And if this gets too therapy, don't worry, we'll go get a couch. So you separate. I understand you separate your self worth from the outcome, but do you separate yourself as whoever Mirko is as a shooter, like just as a shooter, or whatever verbiage you want to describe as yourself? I think we're all on the same page. You need to divorce your process from your outcome, but yourself with who you are as a shooter. Do you divorce that as well?
I'm not sure how to answer that one.
Okay.
Um,
I blame Clark for Kirk for bringing up Stranger in a Strange Land.
Hey man, I just spent a year studying Buddhism, so I'm not sure there is a self. So
There is no such thing as 125. There's only the plates.
There's only Zool. No,
Yeah.
I do try to believe I've done the work to do the thing I want to do, right? And it helps if you've actually done the work.
Crazy
Oh,
enough, right?
mandatory.
You
Like
don't
if you're not
just-
lying to yourself
Yeah.
about that, your chances go way up. But yeah, it's sad. So I don't know that I'm necessarily like separating myself from that more than I already do, I guess, like more than just distancing myself from caring about the outcome. Um, Sorry, totally lost my train of thought.
No, I guess the reason I asked is because I was talking to Brian Hill last year, and on a like a I'm on a period of self discovery about who I am and whether or not what that means, if that even means anything, right? And I'm linking that with aspects of shooting, and I'm shooting relatively well, but that doesn't define who I am. And it's interesting because we both come from very similar backgrounds. Like I think our glasses look affected the same as well, right? And I don't know. It's interesting when you compare doing well with something that you like, with who you are as a person, to uh, it's like if you've always done well at something in your life and you suck one day at shooting, that doesn't mean that's who you are. But
Says you.
well, yeah, you're right. That is
Okay.
100% my opinion, whether or not
So
I'm
seriously,
right.
I did spend years, like I spent years in that mind frame, right? And that oh, I sucked at shooting, my friends aren't going to like me anymore mindset.
Hey, we
Yeah,
all still like
therapy
her.
helps.
Yeah.
We still like you
Yeah.
and your Ariel water, your Helvetica water.
Yes, the Helvetica water.
Well,
Oh,
it's
God.
funny. I was having a conversation about that just today, and I was talking about, yesterday I went back to, I had basically reconstructive ankle surgery from a jujitsu injury in January of 2023, and it's been a fairly life-altering injury, right? And the surgery was successful. I'm most of the way back. It took a year to get healed, and then I've been very proactive in trying to work on it and strengthen the tendons and muscles and everything around there. And so I'm dipping my toe back into jujitsu again. And I was talking to my friend, and they're like, "Well, how is it going back?" And I was like, "Well, I've had to accept that I'm in the old busted guy part of the gym. I'm not with the young studs anymore. Like that's just not me, right? I'm about to be 40. I've had a lot of pretty severe injuries in my time, and I just can't do that 20-year-old guy thing anymore. And that's just not who I am." And I was walking through this with my buddy, and I was just like, so in shooting, I'm used to being top or near the top or one of the better people. And I put a lot of my like, oh, I want to keep being better at this. But I look at people I like shooting with, and there's people I know who are amazing shooters that I don't really care to spend much extra time with. And I know people who are very mediocre shooters that I will go do anything with, if they'll have me. Right. And I just said, you know what? When it comes to jujitsu, I'm just going to have to be one of those guys whose value add isn't that I'm one of the best guys. I'm going to have to bring something to that community, that practice. I want to still be legit. I want to still put in the work. I want to be good. I don't want to just fake it, right? But like, I'm just not going to be the best guy in the room, and that's okay. Just like there's so many other guys in rooms with me that bring other things to the table that I love being in the room with them. I just had to bring other things to the room, and that's fine, right? But it's an adjustment. You got to used to it because your ego wants, at least my ego wants to, try to be number one in everything. So having to put that in check.
Matt, if I could, when I have in the times that I have shot very well, the closest way I can describe it is I'm on guided autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
My shooting is on autopilot. I'm just telling it where to shoot next. And
Yeah.
I'm just trusting the process to get me there.
It's like a flow state of sorts.
Yeah, very much so.
And
Very much so.
I do want to get back to San Silva. How do you, so without driving it, I try to drive that with my vision. Like I know if I see a target, I know I can hit it. How do you, when you are in your flow state, not to get out of the flow state, but how do you guide that throughout a stage or throughout a week or throughout Rogers? Or should you even guide it?
It's I guess my mental thought is I want to hit that plate, then that plate, and then that plate, and then that plate, and I just let the program do what I need it to do until you start getting a glitch. Then you have to jump back in, either fix the glitch or move on at Rogers. And otherwise you're really going to screw up. And, but yeah, it's just when I have shot the best I have ever shot, it's basically just on kind of a guided autopilot. I just say, okay, I need 5 shots there, 1 there, 4 there, 1 there, or whatever, and go from there.
And to do that, you have to put in the massive amount of work to know yourself, your gun, how you shoot, and just dry practice sometimes almost daily to really understand who you are with your firearm.
Yep.
Hey, Rick, question for you. Do you plan for mistake scenarios in your autopilot program?
Excuse me, say that again.
Do you plan for like error scenarios in your dry fire plan or in your autopilot plan?
No, I do not plan for errors.
Okay, so like I'm asking because for me on stuff like test 8 or test 9, it was, hey, you get 2 shots per plate. If they both miss, you're moving on because you're going to lose less points that way.
Right.
Stuff like that. Like I'm curious.
Well, yeah, that thought is in there. My recoil control is not as good as yours. I need to be a little bit more deliberate and try to make my hits a little more positive, because I know I'm not going to be able to wing 4 shots at something and then still be able to move on.
Yeah, and
if you believe in yourself, you can.
Yeah.
I like to, I don't really visualize in images, as many of you know, but I like to think about solving those mistakes, not necessarily in my final visualization before a run, but other times I kind of like work through the problem of shooting in my head. I am thinking about when things go wrong and how do I fix them. I just try not to expect them in my actual run. But
Right.
I've kind of gone through them in my head enough. I have sort of like that map of how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with Annette on that. And the person I picked that idea up from is my fellow CDR coworker, Chris Seipert. It was one year I was at Rogers. I'd shot, at that point, I was going into Friday, having shot 2 123s and 3 124s, which I can assure you is deeply frustrating. And so I was just like, someone help, like, who's got advice? I'll listen to anybody. And Chris very generously gave me some advice. And he gave me advice of like, hey, like, imagine doing it right, then imagine things going wrong, and what would you do to fix those things? You know what I mean? Like not one to the exclusion of the other, but having both. Now, I'll also agree with Rick. Right as I'm going up to go shoot the thing, I imagine everything going right. But the night before or earlier in the day when I'm doing visualization practice, just in my own mind, I will incorporate like Annette saying, okay, that went wrong. I'll fix it like this. Because where I struggle, I think most people struggle, is you get in this loop where you're like, okay, the marksmanship fix is do X, do X, do X. And it's like you're still missing. You're like, oh no, I need to do Y. You gotta get out of that loop. And I think one of the ways you can do that is by visualizing, okay, I say do X, which is like grip more. That didn't help. Like, okay, like make the sight, like pick a smaller spot on the plate. Okay, that's Y, and Y did work or whatever. You gotta kind of like have that. I wouldn't say as you're walking up to the test, but within the hours and days before the test, I think that's very helpful.
So you're saying for people who want to do well at Rogers, or honestly for any test, whether it's competition or earning one of the Pokemon or whatever, that visualization is incredibly important cue. Yeah, that you can just be at work on your cubicle in a meeting and just close your eyes and just see the test and feel, maybe if you can't visualize, maybe feel or just go through the motions of dry firing the test without a gun. And obviously that's even more importantly when you're dry practicing with the firearm.
And I'll often have work travel where I don't get a firearm. It's just not worth the hassle. And like, hello, fellow coworkers, allow me to go get my checked baggage that says firearm all over it. Like, it's just not worth that for me. So I'm usually just rolling with a clinch pick, flashlight, and a med kit, right? And so when I'm in a hotel room like that and I've got something coming up like Rogers or TACON or whatever, I'll budget 20 minutes of my night and I'll sit on the edge of my bed and I'll just do visual stuff where I'm doing eye sprinting from the doorknob to the light switch to the lamp, light switch, doorknob, lamp, light switch. And I'll just do that for 20 minutes, like just using my eyes like I had a gun. And I try to, if I'm in the 2 months leading up to anything, I try not to let a day go by where I do nothing, even if that's just sitting in my hotel room bed and doing eye sprinting stuff with just stuff that's in the room.
All right. One last thing I want to hit on to close it out tonight. Rogers has been in existence for over 40 years. I know 10 years ago we had perfect 125s, number 4 and 5. And Kirk, I think you said you're up to like 18 or 19 now that have done it.
No, there's 10 or 11 guys who've done it. I've done
Okay.
10. Bill's done 4. A guy earlier
Okay.
this year did 3, and
All right.
several other people have done 1 apiece.
All right. So up until 10 years ago, we had 4 people that did it. And since then, there have been 7 or 8 more that have done it. All right. Gypsticks Semi-Auto 3, which is based on Rogers, last year, middle of the summer, number 7 and number 8 cleaned that course. We did it the same day. Another guy was number 7, I was number 8. Coincidentally, David Knight has cleaned both Gypstick, Semi-Auto 3, and Rogers. He may be the only person on the planet that's done that. Of course, maybe with all, so many people that can be in that category. My understanding is that since last year, I think the guy that was number 7 has gone back and cleaned Rogers Semi-Auto 3 again, and I think we've had 2 or 3 others clean it. And so we've gone all these years without having many clean scores. Then all of a sudden we're starting to clean scores. I think the transition to pistol mounted optics is driving that. I can say from my own experience, having shot both Rogers and semi-auto and then semi-auto 3 twice before with iron-sighted pistols. And then all of a sudden I'm shooting it last year with a 325 dot on it with an SRO. I got this huge window, and like I'm picking up plates as they're on the rise. I'm busting them because my focus is on the plate coming up. The dot's there. I break the shot as the plate is, like I say, rising up from behind its cover, popping it, and then I'm going on to the next one. I really think that the more precision of the dot, when you're putting a 325 dot on an 8-inch white plate and breaking it versus a 140 wide front sight on an 8-inch white plate and having to get it aligned in a rear sight, everything, I just, to me, it made a huge difference. Now, I shot my perfect score with a 6 MOA dot, and I could tell a huge difference just between the 6 MOA and the 325 I was running earlier in the week.
I love running big MOA dots when I do run a dot. I think
Yeah.
one of the other things that's changed is there's more acceptance of and practice of using target focus with iron sights. And that's kind of, I shoot sort of whatever focus I get, but not being really tied to that front sight focus on iron sights is a real advantage on the test.
I was a soft focus iron sight shooter. But even running some tests simultaneously, Enid, Oklahoma, Warren got me on their virtual system, and I shot some of the same scenarios with iron sighted gun versus dots. And even being a soft focus shooter, the difference in information that I could pick up with the dot versus the iron sights was tremendous. And I really think it aided in picking up the plates, breaking them, knocking them over, and the like. And especially on some of the far ones, just getting the dot on the plate and breaking it versus having to get everything aligned up before breaking the shot. It was a tremendous difference in my confidence level. And we were talking about autopilot earlier. Like I say, there was times I was hitting places that were rising, times I was just painting across a plate and breaking the shot as the dot was breaking across and hitting it and moving on to the next one. That's one thing where I think equipment will make a difference. Alex, I see your hand up.
Yeah, because that like this is one of those things that I'm deeply passionate about because um especially like Larry Vickers last week put up his post about like, I'm an old school guy. I learned on irons. Where do you fall about learning irons first? And of course, his followers being sort of the era that they are, there was a whole lot of support in that whole shoot irons first. And the reason that I'm so deeply passionate about it is I was one of those people that like when I came up in the shooting space, I inadvertently held myself back from progress because for years I had that attitude of, well, until you can outshoot a stock gun, you haven't earned the right to modify anything. And just because of how my eyes work and how my brain is wired, I never, and admittedly, part of this is due to just the particular instruction that I was exposed to at the time as well. But I didn't grasp the concept of seeing what you need to see until I switched to a dot. And I was able to sort of just deconflict all of this visual noise, simplify the sight movie that I was dealing with. And it made the visual processing much higher signal and much reduced noise, to the point where, had I done that a decade earlier, I probably would be shooting on par with the rest of this panel. Um, Amongst other reasons, mostly because I'm lazy and I don't like dry practice. But that being said, I'm in 100% agreement that working with a red dot just simplifies the visual process to a degree. And on day one, I shot it with my like legit carry gun, and then the rest of the week I was shooting it with my training gun that had an SRO size optic on it. And especially the one-handed shooting, the bigger window does have an appreciable difference. Not so much when you're shooting freestyle, but yeah, the bigger window offers a wider margin of error whenever there is more movement in the gun. So it's a long-winded way of emphatically agreeing with your supposition.
All right, Rick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, there is less cognitive load shooting a dot, because with iron sights, you're lining up four things. You're lining up your eye, the rear sight, the front sight, and the target. Okay. With shooting a pistol mounted optic, you only have three things, and you are still focused at target distance. Everything is focused at target distance. So whether you're front sight focused or target focused with irons, you're still having to line up these two things in the middle. With a pistol mounted optic, you're just putting the dot, you're looking through the optic and you're just waiting for the dot to interrupt your line of sight. That's one thing. The other advantage that I noticed is, like you were saying, when you shot your course there at work, you're looking at the target and you're actually seeing the target come up, as you were saying, but you can see the bullet hit before the target even moves and move on.
Yep.
So in this type of situation, especially at Rogers with freshly painted targets each time, you all of a sudden you see the mark on the target and you're gone. You're not following through that much. You're not having to wait to see if you hit it well enough to make it fall down. Oh no, that was right in the middle. I'm gone. So it does on a system like Rogers, it's a real advantage to me. Besides the fact I can't see iron sights anymore, so it's.
Yeah, now I don't know that necessarily proves the validity of dot going out in the world, because quite frankly, I think the shooting problems that we've dealt with in the world are not very hard. It's the
Right.
decision making that is the issue.
At this point, I'm going to keep shooting irons just to be
Yeah.
contrary.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, I think when we start going to a lot of the classes, that particularly things like this that have a test on them and that have awards assigned to them and ego assigned to them, we start tending to gravitate towards gear that allows us to pass the test or do better on the test, and that maybe that doesn't necessarily is the best thing to be carrying around out in the world, for our real world problems. Just me surmising it again. I know that I had to break, even it up, because the internet was convinced I hated dots for years, and since I said some nice things about a dot in this episode, I had to bring it back down to earth, so that the people wouldn't. Oh, now he's gone all pro dot,
Well, you got to change your opinion every 6 months to
anything that
drive
we didn't
engagement.
ask. I'm not worried about that. If I was worried about engagement, I'd get episodes produced every week. Yeah, there's that. Anything that I didn't ask any of you about that you would like to bring up about Rogers? Everything. We'll go around the clock again. Sir Kurt.
First, I could probably talk about the Irons Dot thing for like an hour, so it's really good that we're stopping.
We can
Okay.
talk about
For
it for at
Rogers
least 7
specific,
because we did on the drive.
yeah, for Rogers specifically, I would say one, the first thing is just go do it. If you're thinking about doing it, go do it. At some point, Bill's going to retire. Bill is one of the most important and like underappreciated figures in our community, and you should go spend time with him while you can before he takes his well-earned retirement, right? So go do Rogers. Come, first of all. Second of all, just like some like points of order if people want to go do Rogers, just skip the BS. What you want to do is you want to have 2 spare mags on your belt and then a gun. If you want to do it Bill's way, do it from duty gear or do it from concealment. If you want to try it like half that, half from open gear, do whatever feels right. Bill also wants you to do it with no more than like a +2 mag extension. He doesn't want you shooting like BS USPSA mags from your starting mag. He does not care where your reloads are. Reloads can be whatever. That's kind of you don't get no special point for that, no special cookie. I remember when I shot the 125, I'm like, oh, are they going to present a secret black pin or something? No, there's nothing. There's just Bill shakes your hand and that's it. That's the only. Now you get your name on a plaque eventually, but like there's no secret decoder ring. But set your gear up, set your goals. I've had people ask me, hey, do I shoot my carry gun? Do I shoot my this? Do I shoot my whatever? And my answer is usually yes. Like shoot your carry gun a couple times, shoot your match gun a couple times, see what the difference is. Like I have shot the test. I have 125 with Glocks and I have 125 with staccatos. Like try different things. You know what I mean? Next year, Claude Warner challenged me to shoot it with the Beretta 92 with iron sights. I guess I'm going full rigs next year. You know what I mean? Like we're going full 80s. I'm going to see if I can get it like a Jerry curl or something. It's gonna be fantastic. So we're gonna go hard next year. But pick what's relevant to you. And that's part of what's so great about Rogers is you get to pick what you're trying to get out of it. Are you trying to have a fun week with the boys and the girls, or are you trying to have like I really want to push my shooting to its limit? Or are you trying to have a, hey man, I just kind of want to see where I'm at right now? Or are you trying to have a, hey, am I going to see how well I can prep for a specific thing? Can I conquer this thing that is nearly impossible? Because that's what it is. It's nearly impossible for all but like the top, the super squad at USPSA Nationals probably can do it pretty well. But I'm not sure how well they do it from carry gear, honestly. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think most of them would struggle with that quite a bit. And that's an open challenge. Any of you guys that think I'm talking about you, I am. Get out there, show me. And that's my thoughts on Rogers. Just go
Uh,
do it.
I will say that I was present when Gabe did it and when Manny did it. Gabe did it from concealment. Manny did it from a USPSA race rig, and I can tell you which one was more impressive. And that's not slighting Manny at all.
125 is 125. It's badass. But
Yeah,
like from concealment's a different thing because things just go wrong in ways you
yeah.
don't expect.
I just remember standing there, because they were in booths 1 and 2, and watching them going, "Wow, that was really good," but that was like even better. Seeing the guy doing it in concealment compared to the race rig. Daniel, anything you'd like to bring up? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just something really quick. This is more just logistics, or if you're thinking about going on the trip. And this may not apply to everyone if you don't have any shooting buddies or anything, but bring friends with you. The experience of being able to like decompress after the course and talk about successes, failures, doing dry fire with each other, talking about techniques for the test and or some of the techniques you're learning in class and how to process them. That adds a whole other incredible layer to the course that just you wouldn't get otherwise. And back in the day when they had the cabin, that was kind of almost built into the course, right?
Yeah.
But since post COVID, they closed down the cabin. If you have the ability to bring a little bit of that with you, absolutely take advantage. It's a 5 days, so it's a commitment. But if you can swing it and you can bring people along with you, I feel like
Mhm.
that enhances the experience significantly. But other than that, that's it.
Uh,
Thanks.
with that, LJ is a fairly cool place for a family as well.
It is.
Especially if you go certain times of year. I wouldn't go during the crazy heat of the summer, and maybe not though. We don't really get cold winters here, but up in the mountains, so you get a little bit of cold and damp. Uh, but for most part of the year, it'd be a pretty good place for your family to go with. Go with you. I will say one other thing about LJ is the first place I ever went through a traffic circle. And at one point in time, I just closed my eyes and hope for the best as I just accelerated through. But yeah, they're not quite as daunting now as they were that time. It's like, oh my word, what is going on here? Finally, I just punched it and went.
See, that's what everyone else in the LJ traffic circle's thinking, though. Is you're all just like lying it like at the same time. So
Yeah, there was a certain point where I was in the biggest vehicle, so I felt pretty sure I was going to survive, and that's when I went.
I'm pretty sure Jesus take the wheel is the city's motto.
Yeah, because it's not just a traffic circle; it's a traffic circle on steroids.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a couple extra exits off of that one. So,
yeah, Marco.
I think I'll echo Kirk. Just go do it. It's a great ride. It'll show you things about your shooting that you can't otherwise easily discover.
Yeah.
And like it's all out there. You can do as much or as little prep as you want, and see what you get out of it. But go do it. Like it's absolutely worthwhile, and you'll absolutely learn if you are actually as good as you think you are. Yeah.
And the answer is probably not.
Matt.
To add to Kirk and Mirko, I really like the idea of taking the test. You can test yourself at your home range, though, if you do it appropriately. You can test yourself in competition as well of all sorts. And one thing at Rogers that I appreciate is you can test yourself with your real world carry gear. I like competition gear. I like carry gear, but unfortunately, I don't go to Walmart with my competition rig. If I do, people look at me funny if I press my shot timer, right? But God, that was a joke, guys. But
Pause.
uh, you can test yourself appropriately. And if you never tested yourself as a shooter, it's going to be an absolute huge ego check that if you don't succumb, then you probably were never going to be a good shooter in the first place. Um, to test yourself, though, you don't need to spend $1,200, 2,500 rounds, and then a week at a hotel after you fly or drive halfway across the country. You can do that in when you dry practice, you video yourself and post it up and show your friends, hey, I sucked at this one draw, or I sucked at this one drill, or my skills are not as good as you can. The one thing about the test is that it doesn't lie and it tests things which you are not going to test. People do not test one-handed shooting because they suck at it, and they suck at it because they do not practice it. Uh, Having an entire week based around testing is either an incredibly good ego check or it's a confirmation of your skills and allows you to grow. Whether you fail or where you succeed, and whether you foolishly attach ego to your success will be based on you, and that will allow you to either grow at Rogers or to never become the shooter that you're never meant to be because you have a foolish ego.
Yeah, I think to amplify on something Matt just said there, one thing about you run the test 6 times during the week, twice on Thursday, and you can have highs, you can have lows, but if that gives you, oh, I did really well today, yeah, but then you stunk the place up the next day. Okay, it's going to show you just where you're at if you can kind of look at the average of, that will give you a really good standard for where you are in that. Yeah, Rogers is it's a great program. It's a fantastic program. And it's a fantastic experience, especially if you get to go with friends. That just makes the whole thing so much better.
Annette.
This going with friends thing that you've heard from several of us is, I think, really, really key to the experience. Most of us, we go to the 1 or 2 day shooting class and you rush into town late at night on Friday night. You might get dinner with your buddies on Saturday, then everybody's rushing home on Sunday. So having that time to spend with people, we talk about how much the shooting sports for a lot of us have helped us find really great friends. Here you really get to hang out with them, which is super cool. And the other thing I think it does is, having that hype squad with you is it's something else. And doing it all week long and doing the test over and over, it's It can be done solo. I'm sure it's a wonderful experience solo, but if you can bring some buddies with you, yeah, it's everything. And make sure you watch some bad movies and, have some good drinks in the evenings and then go out and tear it up on the range in the morning.
Well, I will point out, since y'all said the friends thing so often, I know everybody on this panel, but Matt, y'all were 2 hours from my house and y'all didn't give me a call. I'm just
To be
got to
fair,
point.
we may have been too trash to call you like half the nights we were there.
All right, Alex.
When you were doing the stuff that we were doing, your first call was not to the cops. So I'm gonna like, yes, go with friends, and not just for the social aspect.
Yeah.
Um, it is very useful to go with someone that understands your shooting style, and ideally that understands your learning and or communication style, because the cadre at Rogers is phenomenal, and they have an amazing wealth of experience and knowledge. If you go to somebody that already speaks your particular language, sometimes they can help decode or decipher some of the feedback that you're getting, um, into slightly more relevant verbiage. So, and that's just kind of the nature of it. And that's why all of us go and we take classes from a variety of different instructors, is because we can hear the exact same curriculum element, but it might just resonate from one person more than another. Um, so that's number one. Um, the course forces, I think, a certain degree of self-awareness that I think is truly beneficial, not just in the shooting realm, but just overall, to kind of continue with the therapeutic undertones of this whole discussion. Um, and to pick up on something that Annette had said earlier on, it's really cool because regardless of what level an individual is shooting at, whether they're in your group or not, this course really highlights what different victories look like for different people. And just kind of being able to see all of that in one snapshot. For some people, the victory is making 125. For some people, the victory is maxing out their number of consecutive 125s. For some people, the victory is simply the fact they stepped up, they showed up, and stepped on the range with the monsters on this panel. So all of those are relevant wins. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of value to it. When I had posted on Facebook, it sounds a little grandiose, but the best analogy that I could draw was going to Rogers is kind of like experiencing insert whatever wonder of the world you care to, the Coliseum, the Grand Canyon, what have you. You can hear people tell their stories. You can hear, you can watch people's, vacation videos on YouTube. You can see photos of it. None of that does it justice. When you are standing in that dirt and it's just all around you, it is an almost indescribable experience. And so I think it is worth anybody that is looking to advance themselves as a shooter to go experience it, because regardless of what your skill level is, as long as you can safely handle a pistol, you're going to get your money's worth out of it. And depending on, I mean, regardless of how you perform, you're going to want to go back, because the differences between the tiers are just so irritatingly narrow that no matter how you score, you're like, I was this close to the next one.
Yeah. When I went with a group of people who all knew each other. At least some of us knew each other from online, not necessarily didn't know each other in person at the time we went. And there's a famous barbecue joint in LJ, and there was a guy in the class that
Colonel Pools.
yeah, we knew each other from online, and we show up in town on that Sunday. It's like, hey, let's show up. Let's go to Colonel Pools before we go to the Sunday night lecture. And so we go and we get there, and I'm wearing nothing in my mind that identifies me as a cop. I hop out of the truck and I just grab a hat absentmindedly as I'm getting out of the truck and I put it on. And it's one of those hats that's got like the Velcro thing right up here where you can put a patch on and everything. And I didn't think about it, but nothing else I have on identifies me as a cop in my mind. And so the other guy goes up there and he pays, gives his order and pays, and I give mine. And the girl says, "Oh, and with your discount, that comes to whatever." It's fine. I had to go back up to the counter. Ma'am, how did you know? And she said, "Oh, only cops and soldiers wear those kind of hats." It's just like, well,
So you're saying clothing matters.
yeah. And so I'm like, well, I know not to wear that hat anymore unless I'm doing cop stuff. But that was one of my favorite stories coming out of Rogers there.
The unofficial T-shirt, like the unofficial swag of Rogers Shooting School, is a Colonel
Uh,
Pools T-shirt. Like if I see someone with a Colonel Pools shirt, I'm like, all right, you're a Rogers guy. Like I can tell.
yeah. Um, Folks, I know we've been kind of remiss on getting episodes out uh, here lately. I got a gentle reminder from the magnificent Steve earlier today. He said, if you want to record an episode by Sunday, maybe if you start now, you'll get it done. And thankfully, Kirk was able to get this group together tonight. I've got some other episodes being pre-planned in the works, including some stuff with some guest hosts. So hopefully we will get back to a regular production schedule with the episodes. I am involved in a major uh, uh, project at work that is sucking up a lot of my mental energy. And just when I get home, some days I'm done with people. And yeah, I do have 3 jobs in addition to doing this podcast. So there is that. But hopefully we'll be back with a regular schedule coming up. To all the people on the podcast and on the panel tonight, thank you for participating and giving up your evening and participating. To all of the people in the audience, we know that your number one asset is your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with us.